Thank you for being here today, Kelly. Let's talk about your dad, Raymond Gregg.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where did your dad grow up?
He was born in Sault Ste. Marie and then moved to Fort Lewis, Washington right after he was born. His father was also in the military, so they moved around a lot from Grand Rapids to Michigan. Eventually, they settled down in Sault Ste. Marie. So family dynamic was his parents were divorced. He had an alcoholic stepfather that abused him. His biological father was the one that was in the military, and he was an alcoholic as well. And they were both basically in and out of his life. Stepfather that abused him, it was mentally, physically, sexually. So he wanted to get into the military and get away as soon as possible. He had 4 brothers. They were half and step, but there was 4 brothers and 2 sisters. He was 17 and he chose to go into the Marines. There was a couple reasons that he told me. He said he wanted to be a better Marine than his father was. And he wanted to be a hero for his children. All his friends were joining, so that also was part of the reason that he wanted to join. They all went to Parris Island, and then they couldn't wait to get shipped off to Vietnam. But there was already so many that were already there in Vietnam. So his boot camp and his platoon, they all were stationed in Okinawa and waited for their turn to be called to go to Vietnam. He was a E4 corporal. He said his platoon, they were all so anxious to get their call that they were going. Parris Island, Camp Lejeune, and Camp Pendleton was where all the places he went before he was shipped off to Okinawa. He was a chaser, a warehouseman, a sergeant, a driver for a colonel, and then PPMP. He didn't really tell us much because, we came along after the fact, and we just fortunately got to see the effects that it had on him. But he didn't really tell us much about it. He just never let us watch any type of military movies. I remember Born on the 4th of July and all those movies that came out, we couldn't watch them. He went from Pendleton to Okinawa. He said that they spent a lot of time drinking, a lot of time in the bars, and became joined a band, and he started singing and playing the guitar to pass their time, all in Japan. He said that's where he learned sake and plum wine. His active duty was from the end of December 67 to mid-December 71. From what it sounded like, he was probably in Okinawa the majority of his time when he got to Vietnam. He was the driver. He said he drove for Aberdeen, and he did the PPMP. He was most proud of, and it was most rewarding, was the fact that he was serving his country. He felt like that was the best thing that he could ever do. He thought, when I get back, everybody's going to say, oh my God, you're such a hero. You guys did amazing. Unfortunately, that's not what he came home to. He said that they were landing and they were all like, oh my gosh, look at all these people that showed up for us. They're here to welcome us home. And he said instead they were throwing dog poop at them and screaming about the war and protesting against them. And here they thought, wow, we just went and did all this, and we're going to come back and they're going to love us. And it was the complete opposite. In spite of the cancer from the chemicals, whether it be Camp Lejeune related, we don't know yet, but he would do it all over again. He said he still stands behind this country and what he believes. Would do it all over again if he had the chance, he says. His most challenging and the difficult part was boot camp, because not knowing what you're in for, and literally, he said one time he smirked at a comment, and he got hit with the butt of the pistol right in the head, like, you're not gonna laugh at that again. Just that was for him the hardest part, because other than verbal abuse, being at home, he never really had strict rules, because he didn't have rules at home. It was just an alcoholic not getting his way and, treating somebody badly, but it wasn't rules that he broke or things like that he got in trouble. So here he had to follow all these rules, and that's not something that he was used to. Coming up, he was almost raised kind of to be racist, but he was very surprised when he got into the military, all the camaraderie between all the different races, and everybody was getting together. There was no race. It was just a brotherhood of everybody. It didn't matter black, white, Asian. It didn't matter. So that's what he learned about himself, he said, was that he could be in this group of all these people and not have to have the hatred that he was taught. The camaraderie, that to him was, he said that was his biggest learning experience. And what he was surprised about was the fact that all these races could get together, work together, and there be no finger pointing or segregation by race. It was just everybody together. While he was in Vietnam, he did say he ate a lot, didn't say much. He did end up getting married. Whether it was, I guess it was legal, but I don't know her name. And it was short-lived, because he was, divorced by the time he came back to the States. He says his funniest time was when he was in Okinawa in the band, and just drunk pranks on people and being drunk. Those were his funny moments. There was a language barrier. He was away from his siblings. So that was the hardest part, because he was the oldest. He looked out for his siblings, and while he was there, he took the abuse. And he hated thinking that he left his siblings in that situation. That was his hardest part, leaving them there. But when he came back, his mother had divorced that abusive husband and was dating who I grew up to know as my grandfather. It was, I'm assuming, a good relationship. He came with kids, she came with kids, and those are what I know today as my aunts and uncles and my grandparents. Unfortunately, that's when the alcohol really put its grips in him. And it was, if he wasn't sober and doing his job, he was drinking all the time. He looked for alcohol for comfort, and I think it was trying to deal with his surroundings and the circumstances that, what he was living in, and thinking about them back home. So trying to drown it all out. I guess the drunker he could get, the better, because he wouldn't feel or think anything. Just seeing all his platoon and the people coming back, missing limbs, some dead, that was the hardest part of him, because for him, it seemed like he had the cushy job, and why couldn't he go out there? But that's what they told him his job was, and that's what he had to do, where he wanted to be the one out there, and he hated, whenever he saw a brother come back not alive. So he had a lot of flashbacks. Even I was school age, and I was in the car with my mother and my brother, and he had been to see his biological father during the day, And of course, you get two alcoholics together. What are they going to do? They drank all day. So by the time we got there to pick him up, he comes running around the corner, yelling at us to get down because they're coming for us. And he's in a flashback. And we are like, what are you talking about? And he's like throwing rocks at people, and we're trying to get him to stop. We're like, what are you doing? Like, we're here in Miami. We're not over in Vietnam. That is like the worst one that I remember. I mean, I remember times where he would just be sitting there crying, and it would be because he was having memories or survivor's guilt, things like that. One time he said that he's sitting here looking at his family and his friend in Vietnam. That's never going to happen for him because he died over there. And when they were in Okinawa, they were talking about having families, and if they had a son, their son would look up to them and they would protect their daughters and, all this stuff. And then, he passed away, and he was sitting there remembering his conversations he's had, and he would just be crying and crying and drinking and crying and drinking. There was one really close friend that was from the military that we used to call our uncle, and he would help out my parents. I remember he ran an apartment complex, and we moved in there so he could help watch us. So when we got off the bus after school, we would go to the office of the apartment place and sit in his office and wait for our parents to come, things like that. I asked my dad recently about him, and he said that they lost touch. There was some falling out between the two of them. Had to do with my mother. I didn't ask too many questions. Asking him how it changed, he said the government didn't respect them. The government didn't take care of them like they were promised when they went in to sign up to become a Marine. Everything that they told them when they got out would happen was like the complete opposite. Like the fact that he was in the military didn't give him a step up or an extra, like a foot in the door for anything. When we were born, he could never hold down a job until in the 80s is probably when he finally got a job at the VA hospital. And that's where he was working when he was incarcerated. He was just blackout drunk. He was at his apartment that he shared with his wife and his 83-year-old mother-in-law, I believe. And his wife had left him, but she left her mother there with him for some reason. She had been gone for 2 weeks. My father had been giving her medication. She has Alzheimer's and some other issues. And he would give her medication every day, but he kind of did one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you type of deal while he was drinking alcohol. So the night of the so-called murder, she thought it was time for her pills, and he had said, I already gave you your medicine, and she forgot. They kind of like argued over a bottle of medicine, like trying to grab it, and he just said, fine, if you want to take it. And she fell back, hit her head on the table, and the way that she landed, she asphyxiated herself. So because he didn't render aid to her, he was charged with murder. But he blacked out after that. He woke up and saw her there. I was 7 months pregnant with twins, my first, when it happened. And I found out because the news station contacted me. They charged him with first-degree murder. When I still lived in Florida, I worked for Miami-Dade Police Department, and I worked in homicide. And I always would say, from everything that I was reading and everything that I saw at work, like, that's not first degree. If anything, that's like manslaughter, the way that I always, but I don't know. I mean, it even says, like, because he didn't render aid to her, and when he woke up and saw her there, he panicked, didn't know what to do, so he drug her body into her bed So because he drug her body into her bed, that, I guess, to them was some type of planning. But, I mean, what do you do when you freak out and you see a body on the floor? I don't know. I mean, yeah, you called 911. He did call 911, but after he called 911, he moved her. It was in Pembroke Pines, like Broward County. He was 48. Initially, he was in Broward County, and then he was transferred to Rayford, and that's where he's been the rest of his life. He's still in Rayford, serving a life sentence. April 8th of last year, I received a call from an oncologist at Gainesville Hospital telling me that the cancer that he had gotten in his ear had eaten into his brain. He has a grapefruit-sized tumor in his head that's eaten through and is at his brain, and it's inoperable. And they told me he had a year to live, but that was April 8th of last year, so what he says, he's on God's time now. So it started as what he thought was like a pimple behind his ear, and they took him to medical. Medical did diagnose him with eccrine carcinoma, which is the type of cancer that he has. But they treated it in 2017. They cut out a big part of his ear. A plastic surgeon fixed him up a ear-looking device. But it came back. And when it came back, they kept telling him that it was ear infections. So they kept sending him back to his dorm with antibiotics, and the antibiotics weren't working, and they'd give him steroids, and they weren't working. And he kept telling them, it's something more. You need to do something. This is something more. So they finally sent him to an ENT, and the ENT requested an emergent meeting with the surgeon and an oncologist, and whether it be DOC or Centurion, the medical company, they denied it. They wouldn't let him go further. So he kept going back, and in March of 2023, I got a phone call, which this whole time I was oblivious to the entire thing. He would never told me it was always an ear infection, but he kept saying, whatever this is with my ear is getting worse. I have a hole in my ear. I have, it's eating through my head. It's oozing stuff. And he kept telling me that, they gave me bandages. They did this. They were out of bandages. I had to use tape and toilet paper. And then in 2023, I got a phone call from the ENT that told me, I'm letting you know I am putting emergent on your father's chart. They like to say when it gets to them, it doesn't have emergent on it. So it's a routine thing. I'm letting you know that this is emergent. Your father needs medical attention. He needs to be taken to the hospital. He needs to be evaluated by the oncology team and a surgeon. And I said, okay, what do I need to do? And he told me, start calling. So I started calling, writing, anybody and everybody that I could. And I got nothing. And then just out of chance, I reached out to Jeannie Blaylock, the news reporter, and she got back to me. And I started talking with her. We were requesting all his medical records, going through everything, seeing this timeline of time after time of them not treating him and sending him back and giving him only Tylenol for this pain that he's having with this tumor eating his brain, and they are doing nothing about it. So we were dealing with this one in particular woman. I know her last name was Alvarez at Centurion, but she was located there in Rayford. She would never, my father was trying to sign the waivers for me to be able to speak legally, to give me power of attorney. He was trying to do all this stuff, and she kept blocking it for some reason. And I went up higher because I had just had it with her. Everybody, anytime I talked to anybody else at the jail, they always ended up forwarding me to her. I finally went above and went to the warden, and But like 2 days later, I got a phone call from somebody else, and I said, well, I've been telling Alvarez this the whole time. And they said, well, Alvarez is no longer with us. So whether she got fired because of the whole thing, got transferred, I have no idea. It was literally one day to the next, she was gone. And then people started paying attention, but it was already too little too late. Like, even the doctors at Gainesville Hospital have in their notes, after multiple requests and those requests being declined by Centurion and DOC, he's finally here. But it's after all of these failed attempts, and now it's inoperable and he's terminal. Every doctor said it could have been prevented. If they had treated him the very first time, they said he needs to get to the hospital to be evaluated by an oncologist. They said it would have been an average, like, surgery that they do all the time. But then it started becoming, okay, now we need to get somebody else involved because it's getting really, really close to the brain. But if we're going to act, we need to act now. We need to act, and no action was ever taken. And then by the time they did get him there, it was already into his brain. He is in excruciating pain, and they only give him Tylenol. But he says he's never been offered anything other than ibuprofen. I don't understand this math, but every 90 days he gets 30 ibuprofen. So the Tylenol, we're literally between myself, the colonel, and then a couple other vets, they send me checks and I put the money in his account so he can buy Tylenol for his head. When I tell you, like, and it's like $2 for a pack of 2 pills. So the colonel has probably sent me well over $500. I have another one that has sent me about $350 and another one that sent me about $125. And that has saved me, because if it wasn't them, it would be me. And I also send him meals. I fund his, like, the phone account. I give him stamps so he can write to people. So it was all falling on me. So I am, like, grateful, but I also feel terrible at the same time that they even have to do it. If he asks to go to medical because he needs supplies for the oozing from his ear, they take $5 from his account every time he has to go to medical. There is some sort of, like, agreement, I swear, with Centurion, and in that amount of time where they mistreated, like, wouldn't treat his ear, they sent him in a year's time for 5 CAT scans and MRIs because they kept losing his file. What did they do with cancer? They didn't do anything about it. They wouldn't send him to the hospital. They just kept sending him to an outpatient radiology place to get CAT scan, MRI, CAT scan, MRI, 5 within a year because they kept losing him. And then the last one, after this one woman, after Alvarez was gone, then they were like, oh yeah, we have it. And then that's when they sent him, and it was too late. I'm not saying that my father would be out and we'd be having this chummy relationship and everything, but he would be alive and I would still be able to have the conversations with him and talk to him on his birthday, my kid's birthday. We do video chats every now and then. Sometimes I'll do like a Christmas in July and send him videos from other family members or friends of mine, because he used to be my softball coach. So I would send him videos of some of the kids, the girls that were on my softball team that he would coach. They would record a little video for him and I'd send it to him. So just different things. And now it's like we're rushing to get whatever time in we can. He calls me morning, noon, and night. I don't answer every time. It's just to let me know that he's still alive. Today I haven't gotten any calls yet, but it could be lunchtime or something could be busy, but I don't panic until I don't get a call for 2 days. Because if he had to go to medical at the time he normally calls, then, He is the chaplain for the veterans at the prison. So he's got a very close relationship with God. So when it's his time, it's his time. He's ready. They took him from me. They murdered him. Had they just done their job, instead of trying to push him off to maybe get more tests so they can get more money in their pocket, I don't know. I don't know if they get so much money for every CAT scan, MRI, but it sure seemed like it when they just kept losing them. In a day where we have electronic medical records, how are you losing? How do you lose it? So I call BS on the whole losing everything. He gets up, he goes for coffee, then he comes back and reads the Bible, then he'll usually call me, then he usually tells me he's going to go lay down now because he's tired, just from the walking. I guess the phones are far from wherever he's got to go, so then he goes and lays down, and then he goes for lunch. If he does eat, a lot of times he doesn't. His stomach can't handle whatever they're having. So he'll call me, let me know he's alive. Then he'll go and watch TV for a little bit. And then if he's got service, he'll be, working on the service for the weekend, meeting with the vets. Sometimes, I think on Thursdays, they have some meetings where the colonel goes, and then dinner and bed, start all over again. His thing is, if we can fix the system now so that nobody else has to go through what he's gone through, then it'll have been worth it. It's Florida DOC, and the medical is Centurion. Centurion is like that huge company that has the contract with DOC right now. I do have this right here. Let's see if I can grab it. So this is what the colonel had made. It's very, I don't know what word you want to use to describe the fact the colonel had made this urn for his ashes. The woodwork is amazing. Again, brothers, they are very close. I've gone to the prison a number of times. Big time brotherhood. When our story came out and it was on the news there, and they watched it at the prison, and I went to visit the weekend after it aired. They might have information same, health things that have happened. So they've been told to contact Jeannie, and Jeannie's been contacted by quite a few of them. And there's people asking, where's the follow-up on that story? We want to know more. We want to know what's going on. We'll see what happens. She still stays in contact with me. She messages me, telling me she's thinking about us, hoping my father's okay. We got her in under the pretense that she was speaking with the veterans. And then she started asking him all the questions about the cancer and all that stuff. Yeah. So they weren't aware at the time, but then they, somebody overheard one of the questions. So she said that the prison officials were all standing around wanting to hear the questions that were being asked. So she had to choose her words wisely when she was asking the questions. He gave me all his belongings. We had to do that through the whole request system because they had to search the whole box. It was a huge paper box filled with all his pictures and letters. He has a common law wife. They called her and said, "Oh, we just want you to know Raymond has a hearing tomorrow." And she was like, okay, didn't know anything. They didn't go into any type of detail or anything like that. And then we get something saying his thing was denied. And we're like, how was this denied? And they said nobody showed up at the hearing to speak on his behalf. And I said, nobody told us that we were allowed to. There was never anything expressed to us. And once you're denied, you can't apply again. They were not very compassionate. I didn't get anything. I got the email saying that it was denied. He said that he wanted people to know if he had it to do over again, he would, without a doubt, do it. I love him. Hard-headed, stubborn too. That's what I get from him. That's why I told him. I said, "You're too stubborn to die. You're gonna go past a year because they told you had a year." You're like, "No, I don't. I got longer."
If you are a veteran, or if you know someone who is, I urge you to share your story. Whether you fought in battle or worked behind the scenes, your experience matters. It's not just history, it's our history. It's a history we cannot afford to lose. At Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel, we are committed to preserving these stories, but we need your help. Subscribe and share it with your friends and family. And most importantly, if you have a story to tell, reach out to us on social media or email. Both are listed in our description. Every veteran story deserves to be heard, remembered, and honored. So join us in this journey. Together, we can ensure that the legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel live on. Thank you for listening, and to all veterans, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service and your sacrifice. Let's spread the word and keep these stories alive. And remember, every story matters, especially yours. Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel was written by and produced by Diana Mall Halstead, the Kriege's daughter. Until next time, this is Legends of the Barbed Wire Hotel. Stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Thanks for listening.